or being it at the implementation stage, the planning or the post-implementation stage. We happen to have a young lady who would be taking us to today's session. She's a member of the Sustainability and Safeguards Unit and has been able to secure 2 degrees in her name from 2 reputable universities here in Ghana. She's also part of the hello.
I think we lost you a bit.
Oh, okay. So our presentation will be handled by Antoinette Samantha Hayes, who is a member of the Sustainability and Safeguards Unit. She holds 2 degrees, one in political science and sociology, and then the other in gender and peace and security, all from 2 great institutions here in Ghana. She has specialization in environmental, social, health and safety, compliance monitoring. She also is a gender and security person, as well as she also has skills in conflict management, case management, and then international relations. And Ms. Gabby Hayes, please, you can take the floor and then take us through and give us more insight into environmental, social risk management and why we would have to manage all this risk during project implementation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Irene, and good morning to you all. All right, so as indicated earlier, I am presenting on insights from the Essentials of Environmental and Social Risk Management training. It was a training organized by TREC and GIMPA in collaboration with the World Bank, like Irene rightly said in her introduction. The training actually tackled 10 full-pack models, and I will endeavor to touch on all the topics as is seen in my presentation outline. I'll quickly give a background to the environmental social risk management. So following the constant destruction of the environment as a result of infrastructure development and industrialization, somewhere in the year 1972 in Stockholm, the first ever conference on the environment was held to discuss potential ways to aid in the protection of the environment in the midst of industrialization. That was where the concept of sustainable development was born, somewhere in 1987, following recommendations from the Brundtland Commission, who were tasked to, as during the environmental conference in 1987, to find measures to protect the environment. And as such, the popular sustainable development definition came from there, which states that sustainable development means development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So, introduction to environmental social risk management. Most projects tend to pose threats to the environment and community of the projects in which they are being implemented. And some of the environmental threats that could come as a result of project implementation can include water, air, and noise pollution. We could also have land degradation, deforestation, among the construction activities. For the social parts, there could be loss of people's livelihood, people's properties, and then at times the health and well-being of the community members could also be compromised. So as part of achieving sustainable infrastructure development, some institutions and as well international financial institutions have some outlined principles and standards to guide projects that are being funded by them to be able to protect the environment and at the same time the society. So examples of some international financial institutions, the World Bank, which is currently sponsoring the project I am working on, that is the OPRC project package 1 in Yendi. And so they have some frameworks and safeguards systems that are there to protect us. Same applies for projects that are being funded by the African Development Bank, which is secured by their integrated safeguards systems. And to add up to that, there are some regulatory bodies and institutions that have been set up. And these bodies are there to, or they seek to protect the environment and the society in the midst of development. They are important because they guide the project by the national and international policies and regulations that will govern the protection of the environment and then the social risks to protect the biophysical and social environments from serious consequences that may arise from development projects. We believe that this, at the long run, if they are being implemented and adhered to, would help to ensure sustainable compliance. Fortunately for us as well as a nation, we have these regulations in place. We can talk about the 1992 Ghana Constitution. We have the Environmental Protection Agency, among others. And Ghana has also ratified to some conventions as well that seek to protect the environment and society. We have an example as the Minamata Convention on Mercury. So projects, like I've been saying from the previous presentation, will mostly pose stress to the environment and society. And it is therefore crucial, very crucial, if there is anything like that, that before any project implementation, such risks are all identified. We should make it very possible to identify every risk that would arise from project implementation, assess them on their level of impacts to the project, and then find the best mitigating measures to address such challenges. That is, in mitigation, we can either look at avoiding such risks if they are very minimal. We could look at reducing them to some extent. And if these two are not possible, we go ahead to find best compensation methods or offsetting methods to such risks. This process of identifying risks and measuring their impacts would be termed as ASIA, which is Environmental Social Impact Assessments. These environmental impacts or risks that could come as a result of projects could either affect a project positively or negatively, depending. So ASIA is also necessary in projects since we believe that during ASIA, if all the risks have been identified, maybe through stakeholder engagement, it gives the people, the community, the host project community, the insights of their project. So even before project implementation, they know what is going on. So it's able to prevent conflicts that might arise as the people get new consent. And then some tools to aid in risk impacts can include using a checklist, using the expert system. Since there are experts who have expertise in either environment or social, they'll be able to look out for the risks that are involved in those fields. Stakeholder engagement. This particular topic this particular topic remains one of the most vital pivots for every successful project, especially if you seek to have a sustainable one. And it is therefore advised that throughout every project cycle, an effective and continuous stakeholder engagement should be ensured. Someone might ask, who is a stakeholder? Stakeholders are people or persons who have an interest or are concerned by a project. And then some stakeholder engagement tools we could use to identify them can include field visits, having discussions, doing interviews. This way you'll be able to identify the stakeholders to every project. And some key stakeholders to project can include service providers, academia, to mention but a few. And usually stakeholders are categorized into four main groups, which are the project affected persons, otherwise known as the PAPs. We have the proponents. The proponent could mean the contracting entity, the developer, the monitoring consultants, which we are currently doing that work here on the Tamale Yendi project and Patali Zatsugu, Patali Yendi project. We also have regulators, as I've mentioned in my other slide, and we have other stakeholders. Other stakeholders could include NGOs, CSOs, other institutions in the community. And like I said, some effective ways of identifying stakeholders can include professional knowledge, using workshops, and stakeholder mapping. Stakeholders classification too is done in three main parts. We have primary stakeholders, those who are directly being affected by the project. We have the secondary, those who are indirectly affected, and we have the tertiary, those who have significant influence on the project. So to every project, there are some environmental and social risks that are inevitable during project implementation. One is land acquisition and involuntary resettlement. Under land acquisition, we're saying that during infrastructure development, lands are usually, if not always, required for development. So it is therefore crucial that landowners who such lands are acquired from are rightly settled. Project affected persons whose properties are equally affected as a result of development should also be well resettled. And we are saying, what is resettlement? So we're saying the best form of resettlement is to usually do an incline. So if you come for my land, at the end of the day, I expect that you give me back my land. If you come and destroy my home, I expect that at the end of your project, just give me back my same home with everything that is in it. That is what we talk about when we say resettlement. But in the absence of this incline, maybe land for land, house for house, we also accept cash payments, otherwise known as compensation. So you value my home or you value my land and give it to me. But it is also worth noting that World Bank states that in resettlement, you give the person the exact thing that you are taking from the person, or otherwise give a better replacement. You can't give the person something beneath what he or she had, because we believe that projects are there to improve the lives of people and not make them worse off than you met them. Okay. Yeah, so under this, we have on the project I'm currently working, we have had issues as such, where some farmers were not properly settled and they had to raise concerns for the monitoring consultants with the contracting entity to come in to resolve those issues, and then those farmers were properly settled. So under labor and occupational safety in development projects, during project implementation, when the safety and well-being of the employees is not well managed, it can lead to accidents sometimes, and there may be social or social upheavals or disturbances. This has also been experienced by both lots on the project I'm working on. So for instance, lot 2, there was an incident where a carpenter was working on the formation, and unfortunately from heat stroke, he fell from the formation level, hitting his head on the ground. But thankfully for us, he was in a helmet, so there wasn't any major injury. But we believe if some safety measures were put in place, it could have protected him. We've also had instances where workers, because of maybe inadequate provision of good working conditions, embark on sit-down strikes and all that. We also experienced one in lot 1 where a mechanic was working, and then the machine, there was a mechanical failure, so he got cut by the machine and sustained some injuries to his abdomen. Conflict and competing interests. Development projects would always lead to conflict among or between stakeholders, despite all good intentions, since there will always be differences in interest or perception. So conflicts are bound to happen during projects, especially when a good stakeholder engagement or hasn't been ensured. It will definitely lead to conflicts. But we are saying that nonetheless, some measures and strategies have been put in place to respond or address emerging conflicts. This can be done through collaboration and compromise. And a typical example is on this same project for Lot 2, that's Tamale Yendi. There was an instance where the community members were not happy about some activities of the contracting entities. To be specific, that's emissions that was emanating from the road construction. And because of this, they mobilized themselves, came to the campsite, locked up the campsite, and to the extent the project manager was even sacked. But then we had to apply some of the strategies in responding to conflicts. So there was a discussion. We actually used the collaboration method. So there was a sit-down discussion between the client, the contracting entity, with the monitoring consultants, and then the traditional authority who represented the community. And we came to an agreement, and that issue has been amicably resolved. Okay. And gender-based violence and sexual exploitation and abuse. This is very sensitive to me. There is always the tendency for gender-based violence, sexual exploitation, and sexual harassment issues to come up while projects are ongoing. Definitely, if not one issue, we'll get 2 or 3. And then GBV, I'm sure people will be wondering, what is it? Gender-based violence is violence that is directed against a person because of that person's gender. And for this purposes of learning, I'll limit gender here to male and female. There are others too. I'm sure another time we can learn about that. And so it's any violence that is directed at someone because of the person's gender. So it's either you're a man, I beat you because you're a man, you're a woman, I beat you because of a woman, nothing more, nothing less. Yes. So whereas sexual exploitation, on the other hand, is when a person in a high authority use his or her influence to exploit a subordinate. And like I said earlier, this is usually common on projects, especially when employers or supervisors use their influence to exploit young girls and boys in the name of giving them jobs or money. Fortunately for us as a nation and as a project, there are some institutions and strategies internationally and nationally that have been put in place to manage such outcomes. Like I said, we also have some strategies on this particular project that are there to curb GBV issues. So an example is when employees are recruited, they are made to sign the code of conduct, which prevents them from embarking on certain things like this. And we also have a system where maybe survivors of such situations, such horrible situations, can lodge a complaint and have their complaints immediately redressed. So these are some of the strategies as seen in the pictures. Social inclusion and development projects. Projects also have the tendency or could actually exclude the participation of some stakeholders due to maybe their race, their gender, their sexuality, their economic status, among others. So examples of some people that are likely to be excluded from social engagements or projects can be children, can be women, can be people living with disabilities, so on and so forth. And we are saying that social inclusion is a fundamental human right, and thus projects are being encouraged or required that at all times you include all stakeholders to ensure equal representation. And this picture here depicts the NGO, an NGO on our project that is involving women. So after the training and after the insights that I gained from here, when I came back, I introduced this perception, because usually on or during our community engagement, we realized that, I don't know, maybe because of the parts of the town or country the project is being embarked on, women are not really outspoken. So usually during community engagement, we realize the women are grouped at one place, and whilst their men are talking, they are unable to talk. So we took up a new strategy of having community engagement solely for women, so that this way they will also feel included. Aside that, we also visit schools now to include and explain their projects to their children, since they are all stakeholders on this project. Development projects always come with grievances, and the ability to manage incoming grievances is significant for successful project implementation. Grievance can be described as an issue or claim that a project affected person wants a company or a contractor or a project developer to address and resolve. And additionally, grievances will always or typically evolve around maybe access to land, displacement of livelihood, displacement of one's cultural heritage, to mention but a few. And then this grievances can actually have some effects on a project. So I would want to refer us back to the conflict I spoke that happened on lot 2. That was between the community and the contracting entity. We realized there was a delay in the project since they had to close down the campsite. It took the contracting entity some time to be able to resolve the issue and then start afresh again. This delayed the project to a large extent. And sometimes if one is not even lucky, it could lead to the total failure of the project. And you might even leave and the people will not feel the benefits of the project. Yes. Okay, so all the same, we have to put in some mechanisms to resolve or address these challenges that could arise. So we're saying that there is the need to get a system in place to handle all these grievances, giving the contracting entity the time to run his project smoothly. So as a result of this, the World Bank or the project I am working on has a grievance redress mechanism that has been set in place, and it is there to enable the local communities, the employees, I mean, anybody that the project concerns who has when they perceive a negative impact arising from the project activities. And then this is being handled by an independent body, an NGO known as the Savannah Signature. So that way it allows the contractor to work, and then the NGO is there to specifically deal with all grievances to ensure transparency. But however, there are still some challenges that would come up with this grievance redress mechanisms, which we have experienced on this project. Sometimes we have lack of transparency where the complainants would say, okay, what shows that if I come and tell you my issue, you'll not be the same person to go and tell my employer and I'll lose my job. Or sometimes we have lack of resources. The people are not able to access the grievance redress mechanism. Maybe the person doesn't have money to even go to the complaint office. Yes, but there are, however, some checks in place. Well, there's the use of toll-free numbers. If you want to make a complaint and you don't have credit, you can call them on their toll-free number. The GROs, who are the grievance redress officers, once in a while go into the community to take grievances from the community people. So during project implementation, it's also advised that whilst they are drawing the projects, we should incorporate the environmental and social risk management activities into the monitoring and evaluation. This way, we are able to measure the risk that have been identified and see the level of implementation. Are they being implemented well, or should we get alternative means to implement them? And it's also usually advised that you use indicators that you can use to measure. You can't just measure bluntly. You need something to stand on to measure, which are termed as the indicators. And there's advised again that every indicator should bear these qualities. It should be specific, it should be measurable, it should be achievable, relevant, and time-bound, otherwise known as SMART. Every indicator should be SMART. And to be able to measure this level of implementation, we should always embark on constant or continuous monitoring. And I'm sure that is why we have the monitoring consultant here to ensure quality work. Mainstreaming ESRM into public procurement, planning and budgeting process. So during the contracting entities procurement processes, it is advised or it's crucial that he looks out for how his procurement processes can affect the environment or affect the society. So sometimes the contracting entity is just in a hurry to get his work done. He does not consider how his procurement is affecting the society. So for instance, this is a picture where the little boy in a school uniform is constructing a trench, was taken at lot 1. So in procuring his employees, he didn't consider the age. So that is a minor being used to work, which is against the rules of Ghana and that of the World Bank. And then that is the quarry. The picture up here is the quarry, which maybe in trying to source for his materials is causing air pollution. So we're saying that in sustaining it, the contracting entity or whoever is doing procurement should also consider protecting the environment and society at the same time. In conclusion, ensuring environmental social risk management in infrastructure development can help prevent some of the pictures that are being depicted here. The one on my top left is a worker or an employee who has been electrocuted. I believe there were no safety measures put in place to protect him. To my upper right is land pollution as a result of construction activities. To my left below is water pollution from oil spillage as a result of construction activities. And to my right below is a social upheaval. Probably the people were not happy about what the contracting entity was doing to the yes, as you can see, rapists. So I'm sure the contracting entity's employees were going about raping the girls in the community, which they were not happy about. Then again, ensuring ESRM can help the project to be integrated between the environment and then the people. It also helps to avoid conflict and misunderstanding, since there will be constant and continuous stakeholder engagement. It will also increase accountability, since the community members will be aware that, okay, this is what the project is supposed to bring. So they hold the contracting entity accountable at all times. It also increases project acceptability. And in all, sustainable infrastructure development is a collective responsibility and is achievable. And this, I'll just use this platform to advise our dear engineers that in as much as construction is geared towards engineering, you should also consider the analysts' recommendations and what they say, so that at the end of the day, we'll be able to achieve sustainable development as defined by the Brundtland Commission. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Antoinette, for this wonderful presentation. I felt like I was in, I was in a session. Thank you so much. I don't know if we have any concerns or contributions, questions, kindly make it known. Thank you. Any questions, please? Her presentation was quite lengthy, so I don't want to believe that you don't have any. Yes, Emmanuel.
Yes, good morning, and thanks for the presentation. From the presentation, I realized that my environment may be noisy. Sorry. From her presentation, I realized that for the compensation, maybe if you are to take land, you may have to reclaim the land to almost the natural state, or you pay money for the compensation, which I think likewise a house, you have to compensate for a house that is crashed down because of the construction of a road. So I want to know, in this
Emmanuel, I think we are losing you. So if you could please position yourself a bit well. Thank you.
for the road to be constructed, but the other end, the other party is not agreeing to that. But from the presentation, we realize that they have to try as much as possible to restore to the owners what they were having, up to what they were having or even more. But why is it that sometimes the people say, okay, I don't need the money. In fact, I even have my own land. Come and build the same house for me before I move. And that one is also an issue. Can you comment on that? Maybe some projects may have a one way of settling those issues. I don't know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I think perhaps we can take the questions and then we can address them after taking this question. So I see a hand up. I'm Engineer Malome and then Jacqueline. Engineer Malome, can you please?
Okay for Antoinette to address, or you'd want her to, well, put everything together?
Yeah,
Anyway, so if you wanted to put everything together, that's fine. I just don't want Emmanuel's question to be lost. But my question relates to a lot of things. So social inclusion, there's a bit of, okay, before I go to social inclusion, Antoinette, could you go back 2 slides? Oh, maybe 1 slide before. Thank you. Yes, this slide. I have a challenge with this slide. You relied on this slide to make some conclusions I'm not comfortable with. First of all, the pictures and what they depict. Oh, before that, you did very well. You were very eloquent. So good job. Your eloquence is very admirable. I am not comfortable with the photographs you all throughout. I admire the photos you used to illustrate your point because they came from the projects. But to the end, you rather borrowed photographs from very strange places and even use this picture from Namibia to illustrate the sea and their potential issues on the project. I think you may have enough photos from your project to illustrate the issues you want to depict. Then there is another, perhaps, there's another issue I have with social inclusion. When you were discussing social inclusion, you raised an issue of non-involvement of women and children in stakeholder engagement, which I was excited about. Okay, so you hold on to this slide. Hold on. Stay here. Stay here. This slide is also fine. This slide, I want you to go back to. You may have to revisit this slide for. You may have to revisit this slide later on. When you are addressing social inclusion, you made reference to non-involvement of children and women, right? From discussions.
Yes.
Then you later on identified the participation of children in activities on site as being breach of bank, according to you, bank rules. That is what you say.
Yes, sir.
In actual practice, You have also been found to be driving away children at sites from participating in whether exercise or economic activity or support to their families at site in work, or whether it is fun activity. You've been driving them away from participating in anything related to the work. Is that the case?
Yes, sir.
Why do you find the exuberance of children and the engagement in the work unacceptable if you, in one instance, argue that they are not included enough in, or they are not included, they are not engaged? I understand the social issue you raise, which is that perhaps they are not consulted. That is what you mean, perhaps, by in your social inclusion discussion. They are not consulted. Their views are not taken. I am exploring the view of the African context. If you ask Irene has worked as a youth from a very young age before reaching universal adult suffrage. So how do you tell an older Irene that it's not acceptable to work as a younger person, not older than 18 years, which is what you are arguing in your next slide? That because children are potentially not older than 18, they cannot participate in what you call economic work because it is in breach of a certain rule, which you do not make any reference to. But mind you, there is also a deception in the looks of people, that because people may be miniature, so because people may be stunted or may look not as vigorous in growth and may look stunted, the conclusion may be that they may be younger than 18, if that is the age at which you are pegging the suitable age to be able to work. Or what is your definition of the suitable age to participate in work? I'm not too clear on that. And what forms the basis for determining the age for at which people should work? Is it okay for them to be able to go to the farm to assist? Is it okay for them to sell by the roadside, which we all see in traffic, but cannot participate in picking sticks from the road or stones from the road or dig trenches? What is the social danger? I could go on, but I would pause on this. And there's another one. For instance, on this slide, why I say you should pause here is this. The first slide says social inclusion is a fundamental right. A significant number of people are usually excluded from projects. Women, children, PWDs. I hope it's not the department. Persons with disabilities. I know that, but it sounds like the department. Elderly people, gays and lesbians, among others. How are you able to determine the sexual orientations of people? Anyway, well, this thought just crossed my mind when you were going on about some of these things. So, well, these are just a few things. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
You may not have to answer all of them if you are not comfortable with or do not know how to even go about it.
Okay. Irene,
Yes, ma'am.
may I proceed, please?
Yes, please, you can proceed. So you can proceed to answer.
Okay. Please, would you want to assist me with Emmanuel's question on the resettlement? Or
Yes,
may I?
please.
Okay.
No, you can start and then I'll come in if there are
Okay, all right. Okay, sure. Thank you. So, Emmanuel Atia, question well noted, and I'll try my possible best to explain it to, and I hope you'll be able to make some meaning out of this. So, in the in-kind kind of resettlements. Like I mentioned earlier on, we look at valuing the property. So I just don't see it per visuals and say, okay, I'm building the same thing. So there's what we call valuation. So we value the whole building, and it comes with its own techniques. So you look at the roofing, you look at the number of rooms, you look at the material used to create. So at the end of the day, we give you almost the same thing or something better. And in situations where the person might request for, okay, I have a land, I want the same building, I'm sure those options could also be explored. But would usually, if it's given to you in money form, we value everything from the amount of your land, everything, your light, everything is considered and then given to you as a lump sum. Irene, please, would you want to add anything?
Yes. So in addition to what someone said, with the in-kind compensation, there are times that these persons have their own land, but probably before the compensation or the valuation was done, these persons weren't consulted, or perhaps their views might have changed during the payment. So let's look at an instance where somebody who assets was valued like 2 or 3 years ago, and we can all attest to this new economic height it's facing us. So the person now comes and like, okay, I have a land, kindly build, knowing very well that the compensation amount being assigned to him or her wouldn't be sufficient. And so in doing this, the client or whoever is in charge of the valuation may want to do away with this option, because one, it will have to go back to the ministry, then to land valuation, which may take a long while to wrap up with, and also which will also hold the project for a bit. And so that is why sometimes we or the clients may want to. So perhaps maybe you are referring to the case of Ejabuache at Atibuwa Mountain. It could be that because of its nature or how the whole process will have to undergo, so there has to be a new valuation, go to the clients, goes to LVD has to come and look at it, and all those processes. That is why perhaps we are trying to dodge all these things. I hope we answered you right.
Yes, please. Thank you.
So when you're referring to Ejabuachi at that table, Amante?
I was referring to Numu Asibachas.
No more say
Oh,
but it's still Ejabuachi.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, I'm interested. Is it the case that the value of compensation is lower than the person is expecting, or what? Has the interest changed? What is the issue?
So the issue now is, according to them, they want entirely like their interests have changed, and so they want the project to build another accommodation at a different place, which cost is very high. They don't even want to have anything to do with the offer letter or know the amount. They just want an entirely new apartment. If not, the project may have to stay away from their property.
Manuel, is that your understanding of the issue?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. But okay. And Irene, that is not possible.
So currently the ministry is trying their best. I think it's not possible because of the procedure. Currently, that very section have been ignored for now, and they've continued to some extent. But the procedures involved may make it too difficult or too tiring. So they are still in negotiation.
Sorry, what do you mean the procedures involved?
So for now, what they have to do is value the structure again, and then it goes back to the ministry. But land valuation is
Why do they have to value the structure again? Has anything changed from the time the structure was initially valued?
Yes, so
Yes.
the property was valued like I think in 2019, and so the
Okay.
figures and everything have changed. Yeah.
What has changed? Have they added on to the structure?
No. So the compensation value at 2019 may not be able to. You can't compare, not to 2023,
No,
and
but
so
the basis rather what's the okay. So just for our learning purposes, the OPRC project was based in USD, and rather the challenge they are facing in settling compensations is that they are overpaying PAPs literally, because the values determined in 2018 and 19 when they carried out some of these valuations were smaller amounts in cedis when they were converted to USD. And so if the amounts are based in USD and being converted to cedis in this current year, they are offering the PAPs more in cedis now. So, for example, if it's 1,000 US, if an asset is determined to be 1,000 USD in 2018 or 19 when it was valued, and the exchange rate at 1,000 USD in 2018 or 19 is at say 4 cedis to a dollar, and in 2022 or 2023 the exchange rate is at say 10, that would have been 4,000 in 2018 or 19, but it would have been 10,000 this year. So the presumption is that so in actual fact, the client's office was facing a crisis of financial accounting between its accountants and its auditors in reconciling figures for the purposes of the bank. Because while the bank is accepting a dollar currency analysis, the Ministry of Finance in its reconciliation as audit is expecting a CD currency analysis, which in fact, oh, could you project the thing again? Which in fact is what has stalled your, I mean, a lot of compensations on package one. But anyway, that is fine. If I just was wondering why it is the case, but maybe the explanations might be different on package three, or I'm lost, or it may not apply in that instance. So I'll leave it at that. But maybe you can find out where the issues lie currently. But that was my understanding at some point.
Yes, sir.
Do we still have the presenters with us? I'll leave it to you.
Someone, hello. Oh, someone, can you please continue with the addressing says comments, please? Someone, please, can you hear us?
Can you hear me, please?
Yeah, no, yes.
Okay, all
So you
right
can
then.
please proceed to address this.
Yes. Okay, so concerning the pictures, sir, well noted. Thank you. Next time I'll try to input our pictures. And on the
Sorry, please.
participation of
Not next time. Sorry. You realize that we just shared what Yvonne's presentation just found its way to the public. It just might not come out right if you have some of these borrowed pictures that do not provide the right
Okay.
context online. So you may have to update them. Okay.
Okay, sir. All right, sir. Well noted. Thank you. On the participation of children in projects, yes, I admit that's what we are asking for children to be fully participated in the project implementation. But we are looking at it let me say, in the positive way. So they should have an understanding of the project. And on the working bits, I feel that form of participation is not safe for them, because maybe we are working with equipment and anything at all could happen to them if the children are playing around. So that's why we use those opportunities, or that opportunity during the school engagement, to explain what the project is about. They can enjoy it from afar, they can have an insight on the project, but they are not required on the construction sites. But
Someone, please. Hello, someone.
Irene, I think they're having an internet difficulty, so you may have to wrap up on their behalf if it persists.
Hello, someone. Okay. Just to add a bit on the social inclusion. So the social inclusion that does not just encompass women and children. It could also be men. In some instances, some men are excluded during engagements because perhaps they have lost their wives who owns these properties. And with children, we are looking at engaging them during stakeholder engagement. So if you take the complementary interventions in Atebubu, where you ask a child what kind of project is currently, are they constructing there, and they have no idea of what is going on. And we all know that, children are so excited when they see machineries, when they see new structures. And it's really worrying to know that these kids were socially excluded. Not to say that they can be included during implementation. So during implementation, they are supposed to be excluded because they can't follow their parents to the farm because they are being monitored by their parents. But when they are, let's assume that they are being employed on projects, these people are after their outcome, and so they may, ask this case to work more than expected. Yeah, and so children are not allowed at campsites and construction zones. I think. Any other contributions or questions, please?
There's no time, but I would have asked more questions on this. That you are justifying why we should go to farm but not to work on the road. So are you saying, anyways, I'll leave you. Jacqueline has a hands raised, so it's fine. Jacqueline has a hands raised, so it's fine. Dog also has a hands raised.
Okay, Jacqueline.
So I have two questions. The first one is on GBV. She mentioned that there are systems of reporting these issues for the benefit of everybody. Is it possible to explain to us how the survivor's identity is being protected? Because these issues can be very sensitive and could even result in loss of their livelihood. And the second one is, are you able to give us an overview of the TSIP's GRM system currently in place for all of us, our benefits? Thank you.
Thank you. So please, are you on?
Yeah, I think I'm back on now. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, please. Would you want to handle Jacqueline's?
Yes.
Okay, right.
If I heard her right, she wants to know if the identity of the survivors are being protected. Is that
yes,
it, please?
And how?
Yes, how is it being protected?
Yes, so with this particular one, it is it is only one person who has access to that particular system where the survivor comes in to talk, and that person has been guided to protect the identities of such people. So when such issues come, once that person is made in the known, who is actually the gender expert, once that situation is made or the complaint is made available to her, she takes it to the appropriate channel and de-associates herself from that issue. So going forward is between the complainant and then the rightful agencies to deal with it. I don't know if this is enough for you. Jacqueline.
Thank you.
Okay, and also to add on, there are some centers for survivors. I think that we have some in Tamale and some other districts where, in case this the identity or the lives of these people will have to be protected, they are being housed there. Also, yeah. Thank you.
So on the Jacqueline, for your second question, if I heard you right again, you were talking about the grievance redress mechanism. You want to know how it works. Is that it, please?
Yeah, an overview of the TSIP GRM system.
Okay. Okay, so to explain this. So you an aggrieved person comes with their complaint. We have channels of complaining, like I mentioned earlier on. You can use the toll free, you can walk into their office, they can come around and pick it up. You can go online and key in your grievance, depending any channel you use. And once the grievance is made known to the complainant or the GRO office, they take it up to the appropriate person or whoever is involved. So if it's concerning the contracting entity, they take up the issue with the contracting entity. And in this process, the identity or the complainant is kept anonymous. So when they're done dealing with the issue, it goes through verification. And whilst this whole process is ongoing, the complainant is kept informed about the progress of reports or about the progress of the complaint. So it's finally resolved. And to affirm the resolution, whoever is on the project, that's the team lead on the grievance redress mechanism system, would have to call the complainant to be able to ascertain that his or her issue has been resolved before it is closed down on the system. Please, is that fine, Jacqueline?
Yes, please.
All right, thank you.
I just wanted everybody to understand what it is.
Okay, that is fine. Thank you so much.
Madam Beryl. Okay, any other questions or concerns, please? Any contributions? Okay, since there's none, I want to believe that we are very satisfied, and also we've benefited a lot from today's presentation. And this is to say that we should put all this into test or trial. We would have to live by them so that our projects will be a success. We don't, it's not just for analysts. We, the engineers, are also passed. Just almost everybody is supposed to participate or have a role to play when it comes to safeguarding and also sustainability. We also want to thank our presenter so much. She did marvelously well. Thank you so much, Antoinette, for the great presentation and insights. God bless you so much. If there is nothing more to discuss, I would like that Sarah, please, you pray for us so that we can draw the curtains down. Madam Sarah.
Please, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay, so maybe pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing this meeting to a success. We thank you for giving us the understanding of the presentation made by our colleague. We pray that as we
In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Okay, thank you so much for coming, and then do have a wonderful day full of the Lord's favor. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
hello. Hello. It's off. Okay.